Hello and welcome back to Mirror's Signal podcast. This mini series is brought to you by Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin, MBE, which is a Patreon page where members get access to a large number of videos to help you understand your neurodiverse learners on driving lessons. This mini series is 10 episodes with Julia, going through 10 tips for teaching neurodiverse learners. I hope you enjoy these episodes. Julia, welcome back for tip number 8. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm not too bad at all, thanks. I'm okay. You okay? Yeah?
I'm great, thank you. Yes, and
Okay. Yeah.
looking forward to seeing what tip number 8 is from yourself. So, can we get
Okay.
straight into it? What is the
Yeah.
tip for us this evening?
Right. So, driving instructors, when they are teaching neurodivergent people, have got to be aware of our ability to handle emotions. So, it's an emotion handling. So, going away from all the facts about brains and how they work. This is linked into the last one that we were doing, which was the preparation for stress, because stress is a trigger for this issue. And it's a problem with self-regulation. Now, a self-regulation problem is what the everyday world would look to us and say, you're immature, you're a crybaby. What are you doing? You know, like babies, they talk about, there's an everyday expression like throwing your toys out of the pram, having a strop, something like this. There's a lot of everyday expressions that express this kind of thing. And a lot of us think, are we immature? Are we babies? Are we not grown up properly yet? But the fact is, the way the everyday world runs, it doesn't take much to tip us over the edge. I think we're not tough, but technically we are, but we just get to a point where our emotional control breaks, and then we get the self-regulation problems come in. Now, everyone's got different self-regulation points because it's a big place. Some people can shudder at the very sight of seeing a complicated junction, and that can bring enormous waves of fear that can come in and wow, you get a big Popeye and things like this. I can't do that, and they can get quite agitated. This is different from the actual stress we're going through. This is an emotional reaction to what we're seeing. The actual physical facts are giving us the stress. Oh my God, I've got this enormous, great big weight on my back. But then we start to collapse under that weight, and then they get this terrible emotional response, and it is horrible. There's loads and loads of triggers in the everyday world that can trigger an emotional response. The biggest number one, of course, will be the driving test centre. And that, oh dear, there's people that won't even be able to walk through the door because they're terrified of bursting into tears. Now, some of them know their own self-regulation problems. So sometimes you can discuss with a person what is most likely to cause an upset that's going to cause emotional breakdown. We've been in situations where we do this. So therefore, I've had people say to me, don't please let me go into a test centre waiting room because I know I'm going to burst into tears. Now, so it's very, very upsetting because the person actually knows this. And they're saying to me, I'm very sorry, but I can't go in there because the situation is going to take control. So their emotional control is going to go, and what happens? They become an embarrassment, and they hate being embarrassing because they know that this limitation that they've got in the brain and the body saying, excuse me, that's enough, and that's going in that building and seeing all the people, and it's the atmosphere more than anything else. Sometimes it's strange environments that cause it, but sometimes it's different people that cause it. There's so many triggers. Look out for the triggers. The triggers that can cause it. Nerves is one, and the stress of the weight of what we're handling, or an unusual situation, or unfamiliar people and situations, that's a definite trigger. That can cause a quite a lot of different people. So even on that's why I say to people, if before you meet a person for the first lesson, you meet them prior. And you meet them at home and find out hobbies and the interests of what they're into and things like that before it's out on the road. So it's less likely to have this problem in the vehicle. The second thing you're going to get, depending on the person themselves, is whether what they see on the road upsets them. Sometimes they can see an accident. I mean, sometimes there's quite a fright. There's things like what the drivers are doing. Could be an accident at the side of the road. There's things like that that could cause a lot of upset. There's triggers that other people might not even realize the depth of our emotion. People on the spectrum on autism especially are often called non-empathetic. They've got no emotion, no feeling, no sympathy, nothing, no empathy, nothing. But if we had a beloved grandfather who we really admired, who has now died, and we see a car that looks like his just driving on the road in front of us on a driving lesson, we can get a sudden swamp of emotion, and we can literally kind of be overcome by something like that. And I was once with the people who did get overcome by it. So I was in that situation myself. I could see he's being upset, and of course, we've ruled out the car hazards. Situation he was in, the task he was doing is all negative, negative, negative. So something's causing the trigger. Where's that trigger? And all of a sudden, it was this particular vehicle. Isn't that incredible? Because it brings the emotion up, and all of a sudden, there's a self-regulation fault coming in and thinking, oh, that's why it's so important. Like you're dealing with this CDE matrix, kind of from the top down. You're thinking of this person at the top of the scale and thinking this personality, you're taking the person as a whole behind the wheel of the vehicle. And you're thinking of this amazing reaction, because that's what we think. I mean, everybody else would probably see it and, that reminds me of so-and-so and carry on with the job. But obviously, we can get engulfed by this emotion. And it's the strength of it. We can get such powerful memory recalls with the brain is actually in that situation. It goes back in time and it's there. The emotions drive that person to that point. Your body is still behind your car. It's in the car, it's behind the wheel, it's driving your vehicle, but your brain is elsewhere. Oh, there's a terrific kind of lapse. I've had this time for myself, and I know how bad it can get when you're halfway through a task and something sends you back in time. I've had people say to me, aren't you very well? What's the matter? Because your face kind of turns grey. It's horrible. And sometimes when you get that kind of feeling, it's very, very deep, very strong, and we have no control over it. We're back. Sometimes we get recalled to good situations which we wish were back again, and then you get that horrible yearning, burning thing, and that takes you over. So that's one of the big things that we suffer from. There's jealousy of the everyday world and of everyday people. And I get this myself, so I know all about it and think, how can they do that? Look at them, they've got friends, they go out at night. They've got holidays to look forward to. How can they do this? Because in the world I live, I don't get anything like that at all. And I'm thinking, how on earth can they get friends like that when I had no friends at school and got bullied at school? And a lot of people on the spectrum identify what I'm saying right now when they hear these words and just thinking, how can they do that? And they get jealous of everyday people. And the type of jealousy it is isn't the kind of thing like, I wish I had a new car or a big house or a big posh job or anything like that. It's a desire to be an everyday person. It's just to one of those people out there. I get jealous of them a lot because I can't hold down an everyday job. If I had an everyday job, I'd be cleaning up the loos. I know that. And you just think in the everyday society, that's your place, that's where you belong. But you can't even get there, you can't even get to that place. So a lot of us on the spectrum, the way everyday people can look at us is thinking, oh, there's another one on the social, let them do some volunteering. And the teachers are doing voluntary work and things like that. When we know we're capable inside of much more. But we're jealous of people that are on wages. We can be volunteering all our lives, we're still jealous of those on a wage. Everyday people have got mates and things like that. And they're thinking, well, because there's so many social doors that shouldn't have phases. And we can get very much jealous of everyday people. So If we see everyday people on the road, if it's pedestrians when we're driving and having a chat with the friends, or I mean, I've got a certain pupil of mine who's desperate for have a family relationship and children. So seeing a family go down the road. I mean, Valentine's Day cuts her to bits. I mean, there's so many things. Just had Mother's Day that tears people's emotions to high heaven, and so you think about times and seasons as another trigger. That can cause a lot of problems, jealousy and a lot of emotional threat and thinking, I wish this, and like, why can't I have that, and why am I who I am, and how come I can't get to this particular place or meet this particular person? Why can't I have a friend, and why can't I have a job or a relationship? And these holidays, celebrating families, and celebrating relationships. And I'm thinking, well, I haven't got one. I'm thinking, that is an overwhelm. So you can get things like emotional occasions coming up where people are supposed to celebrate and be happy. And if you've got a driving lesson kind of like a few days beforehand or something like that, maybe even on the day to thinking, hang on, I've got to keep my emotions under control because of this and because of that. And I mean, I have to shut down the Facebook messages on certain days because you just can't look at it. And that's very common with us on the spectrum because it's a trigger. It's going to set our emotions off. So if there's an occasion, you've got to be very careful. I mean, some of my Facebook people, like the regular contacts I have through some of the stores, like Boots, for example, they say, oh, we've got Father's Day coming in June. Would you still like to receive any emails regarding it or not? And they have the power to shut it down on their end. And so they know the triggers and they can shut it down. But driving instructors are going to do that in the car as well because of the emotional control. That's going to break. If it's going to cause a lot of pain, that is as good as a heartbreak that's really serious. The depth of this emotion is very, very strong. We have no control over it. We can literally burst into a flood of tears. In 5 seconds, some of us can. And a little tiny thing can suddenly start it off, which maybe you don't even know. Be prepared for that.
So there's quite a vast amount of information there. But what I'd like to ask you is something you mentioned earlier on, and that was around the driving test and the emotion coming up to the test center.
Yeah.
How can we as driving instructors help with the emotional side of it in preparation for a driving test?
Well, I've already written this down on the test pass file, which is the drive on pass file because I've got a big file of information from it. Each part of the test produces a different type of nerves. The sort of nerves you're going to get in the waiting room waiting are different from the nerves you're going to get when doing your parallel park, for example. And so usually what you do is to split the test up into factors and think which part of the test itself is going to cause the most problems. You see, if we've got a dyspraxic student, it's the reversing part that's probably going to trigger all the anxiety up. If you've got an autistic student, it's the new environment of the different person you're going to meet that's probably going to cause the stress. So it's got different factors to different people. So I had to combine all the factors together, run the kind of nerves you're going to get through, put them into one file that instructors can get on the email, and they get that from me, and then they can give one free to all the pupils that need them. And individual pupils can also come to me for a file themselves as well.
So with that information, what I'll do before we look to finish this episode, we'll make sure that your email address goes in the description. So if anyone would like access to those files, they can get them by coming to you directly on the email address, and you can arrange with them how to purchase. But yeah, I'd not even considered that the different stages, the effects of different people, and what their triggers might be, and how that might look on a driving test. It's bringing it back to what you said about the GDE matrix and dealing with that person and supporting that individual because everyone's going to be different.
Thanks. Yes, it definitely is. That's going to be the case, and each person's going to get a different type of nervous reaction to a certain different part of the test and the way the nerves respond in that individual, and the kind of emotion they're going to get in the car. And some people, especially with ADHD, they're going to get to the stage in the test where they're going to have a choice. That brain is going to think, right, what's the most important thing for me? Is it to regulate all my emotion in front of the examiner, or is it to keep my driving at the standard? Because my brain can't do both because the energy is starting to come. And there's a danger of these ADHD factors coming in. If I try to do both at the same time, I could lose a concentration. I could get distracted. I could stop focusing. I might lose my attention and my mind can go wandering off. There's a lot that could happen. So nerves do more than affect the test itself. It's affecting the brain. And with these ADHD people, the brains are trying to control all of these ADHD problems. Got to keep control, got to keep focus, got to pay attention, got to concentrate. And they know, these brains know, that if the energy goes below a certain level, if that goes out of the window, they lose attention. Whoa. And they know, but what is the actual, if it did, the consequences of that next to, oh, I'm keeping me driving up to standard, but my emotions are starting to go. I'm going to burst into a horrible fit of, burst into dissolve into a flood of tears in front of my examiner. What is the worst of the two? And the brain's waking up. That's the consequence of nerves that not many people understand. Many with ADHD will have a problem like this one.
There's certainly a lot to these topics and building your knowledge base around it, especially for driving instructors, our audience, and how that is managed in the car. And obviously, people can come to you for support. So we'll leave your contact details in the description of this and all of the episodes that we do, along with links to your membership over on Patreon. But thank you very much for that one tonight, Julia. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks a lot. That's great.
So thank you for listening or watching that episode. If you would like more information from Julia, or you would like to learn more about teaching neurodiverse learners, you can find all the information in the description, or you can sign up to the Patreon membership. Just search for Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin, MBE. Thank you.